Come on in, everybody. Just waiting for the afternoon session to start on the Follow the Money day of the Chad Daybell trial. I just shared this thought of the day over on my other channel. I share these thoughts of the day on my other channel, Checkmate Humanity, every few days. Some people grow up and some people get older. Make sure you know the difference. And it's so true. And this has to do with maturity, emotional intelligence. We were touching on this yesterday in chat during one of the more dry parts of the trial, and about, coping with our mental health and treatments and stuff like that. Emotional maturity, emotional health is just as important, if not more important than than your physical health. And I think a lot of the behavior that we see online is indicative of a lack of emotional health and maturity. And sometimes it's just best to avoid people who display a lack of maturity. And that's it. That's all. So my other channel is this is Disorder in the Court. The other channel is Checkmate Humanity if you're interested. Just waiting for court to come back in session. They did say they were coming back at 1, but sometimes they end up taking up some court matters, or people end up coming late. When you're herding cats, crowds of people, that can happen sometimes. So, and I've actually been watching some things as I hear them.
All right, thank you. Please be seated and we can have the jurors brought in, please.
Show the screen.
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring that up quickly as call it a motion in limine. Hold on just a moment and I'll log on and go on the record.
Chat is no longer in the totally in the shadows.
Okay. On the record on CR 22211623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell, there is an issue that may come up in cross. Let me first ask Mr. Wood, do you believe you'll be done with direct in order to get to cross this afternoon with your witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I do think that's appropriate suggestion. First of all, the jurors are not present. The court will hear a motion in limine briefly on an issue that may relate to cross-examination. I will ask that if Detective Considius, if you could step down for a moment and step out, we'll argue this motion as it relates to an evidentiary issue and then have you return in the jurors once we've made a ruling on that.
Yes, Rando, it was all financial. But it was really interesting because the detective, whenever he would...
all right, we're going to hear an evidentiary issue on a motion from the defense, I believe, as it relates to purchase of firearms. Mr. Pryor.
He would get emotional.
One of the concerns, Judge, is that this officer testified that he had appeared that his Mr. Cox's searches for firearms started in 2019. Now, I have other evidence that's already been admitted for as far as exhibits under previously admitted 34. I'm going to ask that the rest of 34, I believe that's H through J, be admitted as well, and it was by stipulation of the parties that was previously stipulated to being admitted. But the difficulty is that if I start inquiring of the officer about Alex Cox's ability to purchase firearms, and that may have been a reason why he hasn't been so rigorous in having those and whether he could possess those, Judge, there's a chance that Alex Cox's felony conviction for the 2007 crime could come into play. And I just want some guidance from the court. I wouldn't characterize this as a motion in limine. I don't want to get sideways with the court's ruling, and this is going to be walking a tightrope here, and my instincts tell me that there's a likelihood that could come out, Judge.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pryor. What's the response to the state? And the court will note I previously entered a ruling that the 2007 apparently felony case or conviction involving Alex Cox and Joe Ryan was irrelevant in this case. Hence the concern of the defense if it comes out that there was a felony conviction that may have prevented lawful purchase of firearms. I don't have that information before me, but if it's an appropriate area of cross, it may come in. So how does the state respond?
Your Honor, the state still sees this situation the exact same. The 2007 event is still very attenuated by time. It's the state's understanding that there was a withheld judgment, and as such, Mr. Cox was able to legally purchase firearms. And so I don't know how that would affect anything related to this case. If he was able to legally purchase the firearms, and honestly, even if he wasn't able to, I don't know that that would make a difference when it comes to bringing in a 2007 event. Again, the state's understanding is he was able to legally purchase those firearms. And so we believe that the standing or the ruling from the court before under Rule 401 and 403 should stand. It's too attenuated by time to be relevant to this case.
Judge, in response, I guess my concern is not necessarily openly pursuing that because you already told me I can't. My concern is that if I ask this witness, is there anything that was preventing Alex Cox from purchasing firearms prior to 2019? If this officer testifies, and I guess if someone wants to let him know and say, no, I don't know anything about it, I guess that solves the problem. But at this point, I don't know what the officer's going to say. If he says, I don't know, I guess the inquiry's over, isn't it?
Well, it may be. And so on the issue, first I'll note under the State versus Ochoa case 169-903, the court has broad discretion to admit or exclude evidence. And I have to consider under 401 and 403 what's relevant in a balancing test. I've done that previously as it relates to just sua sponte bringing up this 2007 conviction. I would note, however, though, that if there is a proper line of inquiry on cross that goes back to that time frame, then there may well be a relevance if part of the state's allegation was that the time frame of firearm purchases started at a certain time. I don't have any idea what this witness, Detective Considas, may or may not know about Alex Cox's previous criminal history, whether there was a felony conviction, a withheld judgment, when that would have occurred, when he may or may not have been prohibited from purchasing firearms, but it could well be relevant to the issue at hand. What I would rule here is a narrowing instruction that if the matter comes up and you want to inquire, Mr. Pryor, you can just ask in general terms if you're aware if Alex Cox did have a felony conviction that prevented him from purchasing firearms, but not go into the details about who the victim was or what the conviction would have been, and if he knows a history of whether the felony resulted in a withheld judgment or whether Alex Cox had any sort of lawful prohibition against purchasing firearms. So as far as keeping it general, if it goes there and he knows, I would permit that. Otherwise, if he doesn't know, then again, the topic I've already ruled would not be relevant for trial. So that's how we'll proceed, with just a limiting instruction that you could inquire, but not in detail about who the victim may have been.
And Judge, I just want to make it clear that I'm permitted then to ask this officer whether or not he's familiar, if at any time there was anything preventing Alex Cox prior to 2019 from purchasing firearms, or was there any felony conviction? Is that where the court will allow me to go?
I would permit that. I think that may be a relevant line of inquiry. So that'll be the court's ruling on the matter. I will deem that to be a motion in limine ruling. With that concluded, then we can have the detective return to the courtroom and the jurors brought in, please.
Hey, Stacy. So they were actually talking about a charge apparently that Alex had in 2007 that would have kept him from being able to buy firearms, but then apparently the charge was withheld. So, not that it matters to this case or anything, but I wonder what that charge was. And also not that I'm super surprised. Hey, Chopper. Yeah, things are a little quieter here than in court TV. I like things quieter.
No, it's fine.
Yes, I think he knows.
All right.
I think Chad knows more about his guilt than Lori knew about her guilt. I think Lori also knows he did tase Lori's ex. Alex tased Lori's ex, but that wasn't in 2007. That was like in I could be wrong about the date. I could be wrong about
The jury is present on the panel.
All right, thank you. Please be seated.
someone insulted your cat. How dare they? I'll have to look up the date of
We have
the tased
concluded
ex.
the lunch recess.
I thought that
Detective
was later.
Considas is on the stand, continuing in direct examination. I'll remind the detective he's still under oath. Also, for those in attendance today, the courtroom conduct order remains in effect through the afternoon. We'll continue at this time then with additional direct examination. Mr. Wood.
Your Honor, the state has no further questions for this witness at this time.
Okay, then
Oh,
Mr.
boy.
Pryor, cross-examination.
Here comes the cross. And also, when they go to insulting your cat, they've lost the argument, man. They've lost the argument. It's possible that that is the charge, come to think of it, when he tased Joe Ryan. I would never insult.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask if that was on the record, and if it is, I'm going to move to strike it.
I didn't hear what was said. I apologize.
Judge, I had comment.
Sidebar.
You're so funny, Chopper. All right, I'm going to look this up. It's killing me now. I'm going to look up. That is when you are correct. So I stand corrected. It was 2007 when he tased Joe Ryan. It was.
If you could just bear with me, Detective, I apologize for.
And Mr. Pryor, make sure your mic's turned on.
I think that verifies it.
Yeah, she was.
So Detective, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. Do you mind?
No.
Okay. By all indications of what you've testified today, it appears that Alex Cox and Lori Vallow had a very close relationship. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. They shared multiple accounts, and by your count, how many accounts did they share together?
I believe it was just that one Barclays credit card account.
Oh, I was under the impression there were a couple of bank accounts that they shared together in addition to credit cards. Is that right? Do you need to refresh your recollection?
Yes, please.
Right, whatever it takes. You have your book up there? Mr. Wood has it.
We'll have the bailiff deliver those exhibits to the witness, please.
Take whatever time you need, officer, as well, okay?
Thank you.
It's just so unnecessary to insult innocent animals. My goodness.
I believe I can recollect that there's only the one account, the Barclays credit card, that she was on Alex's account.
And was Alex on any of her accounts?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I may have misunderstood your testimony then. Now, you went over a timeline, and I think it was 303 was the timeline. Do you recall that?
Yes.
If I could.
And please indicate what you're publishing there, Mr. Pryor.
I think it's 303, Judge. The exhibit, Mr. Wood.
All right, exhibit 303, that's being published.
Try to get that where we are here. Okay. So I'm looking at 303, and it talks about Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow met in 2018. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then there was a flight to Mesa, Arizona on 1/6 of 2019. You see
Correct.
that? Was that a business trip for Mr. Daybell? Do you know?
I don't.
Do you know whether or not he was appearing at a podcast on that day?
I have no information of that.
Okay. And then we go to 3/19/2019. Are you aware that Mr. Daybell may have been on a business trip that day?
I was unaware.
Okay. Were you aware of what Mr. Daybell's occupation is?
He owned a Spring Creek Books,
Okay.
Book
Published
company.
books, right?
Books, sells books,
Right.
did some podcasting, and he also spoke at some events.
Right.
Yeah.
So he would travel on occasion, and you saw a history of that as well, that he would travel and go to various locations for various reasons, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we don't know what the purpose of that is. What we know is that he met Lori Vallow in October of 2018, and that he traveled for a couple of trips. Okay. And then on the same timeline, you put Charles Vallow's death back on July 11th of 2019. Mr. Daybell traveling twice, what does that have to do with Charles Vallow's death?
Doesn't have anything to do with Charles Vallow's death.
So why'd you put it on this timeline?
Just to show it from January of 2019 across the entire year.
Or was it just to get a reaction from the jury so that they would say, oh my goodness, he's traveling and he must be going to see someone, even though you don't even know what he was going for, right?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained. Counsel, apparently we need a brief sidebar quickly, sorry.
Oh, interesting. Sidebar. So I find Pryor such an interesting character because he's clearly so argumentative and prickly, right? Oh, okay, Chopper. He's argumentative and prickly, but he also wants to be liked. So he'll do things to try to win favor, like, yes, judge, kind of pick me type things. Yes, judge. Oh, my bad. And then and then he gets nitpicky and he's rude and he's argumentative and he can be hostile. And I truly feel like he knows he's that way. So he tries to make up for it with these by pandering. You know what I mean? And I have a visceral reaction to people who are phony. I just do. When I see people on camera or even in person, it's hard to tell in a chat. But when you hear speak, you can't tell in writing when people are being phony, really. But you can tell by the way a person speaks. Yeah. You can tell by the way a person speaks. And when they're like affecting, do you pick up what I'm putting down? when their speech is super affected and they go like this, and Pryor does that a lot, you know. And I think defense attorneys do that a lot. Shannon Smith in the Jennifer Crumbly trial did that a lot. The attorney in the Apple River, the defense attorney in the Apple River stabbings trial did that a lot. The way they ask questions, and I don't know. I don't think it really works for these defense attorneys. I don't think it works for them because you can catch it in writing. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's obvious in writing. Sometimes it's obvious in writing, but to me, it's what really bothers me is when you can tell when they're speaking, when it's evident in the vibration of their voice, and when they're like, "Don't you? Didn't you?" Or the way the defense attorney was questioning the witnesses in the Apple River trial. And he would say, "Do you remember? Do you remember? Do you remember?" And it was mocking. It was very it was very mocky. And you can almost feel like yourself being sprayed with oil as the words are coming out. Now, I wonder what this sidebar is about, because it seemed kind of random, and you're starting to get a vibe about this judge and what's important to him. And what appears to be important to him is the schedule. I mean, I'm not trivializing him. I'm not trying to put him down, but he's always harping on the schedule. And it didn't seem like he was super bothered by anything that had just been asked. It may be an exhibit or something. I don't know. I'm just pondering that. When a defendant plays the victim card traumatically and then they victim blame, they're 100% guilty. Yeah, for sure. He's on Eddie Haskell. You look lovely today. I know. Yes, Judge. Oh, Judge. You wear those robes so well. They fall so nicely over you. They're draped so well over your body. If I may, Judge. Yes, Judge. I'm tempted to now start playing funny court clips. I was looking for updated funny court clips, and then ran out of time while I was looking for other stuff, like more substantial stuff for us to, about this trial. But since this sidebar is taking so long, let's update ourselves with some funny court clips. I like this one.
Good morning, sir. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah, you. Yes.
Nathaniel Saxon, sir.
Your name's not Buttfucker 3000, you yo-ho. What kind of idiot logs into court like that?
You yo-ho.
Judge, you're so gorgeous, Miss Judge. I just have to tell you, you're gorgeous.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Judge, you're gorgeous. He was definitely doing he was a defendant doing the whole Eddie Haskell. That's right, Chopper. The jury is definitely, looking through the bullshit eyes. They're looking through the eyes of, the no bullshit filter, right? They can smell it. They can smell it a mile away. And that's another reason why I don't think it does them very much good. I come from a marketing and PR background where authenticity is a value. If you come across too salesy, you lose interest. Too pushy, too salesy. Some people can be pushy and salesy and get away with it. But I don't know. I hate trying to push my agenda and push things on people. I like to formulate good thoughts and words that may end up being persuasive, but it's really up to the other person, to come to their own conclusions. If I was smart enough to come up with good words and phrases that convince them, well, that's great. But I don't like being pushy. I mean, you can tell I don't really market my channels very heavily. One of the reasons is because I don't love using social media that much. Are they going to tell us what?
All right, thank you. Please be seated.
Are they going to tell us?
Okay, we are back on the record on CR 22211623. We took a sidebar. There had been a concern about potentially some unauthorized recording of the proceedings. The court would remind all of those in attendance that according to the court's courtroom conduct order, no unauthorized recording of any type, audio or video, is permitted. And if you have a device doing that, you may not only be required to leave the courtroom, you could be held in contempt by the court. So I will remind those in attendance here of that. We didn't confirm anything. That was the reason for the delay, is to address that concern. I do want the jurors to know it was only a concern about a potential recording of audio, and also that the delay was not in any way caused by anything done by counsel, the state or the defense here. It was simply us trying to maintain the court's order of the courtroom without unauthorized recording taking place, which again, we have not even confirmed occurred. That was the purpose of the delay. So I apologize for interrupting you, Mr. Pryor. If you'd like to get on with your cross-examination at this point, then you may continue.
And could I inquire the last question, just so I know where I was?
It was probably a YouTuber.
There was a question actually with a sustained objection that was argumentative. And so I think if you just want to start over on a new question, you were talking about the 2019 timeline.
So if I understand on the timeline of 2019, the purpose is to show contact between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow?
Well, it shows that Lori is paying for Chad's flights, so there is some contact there.
Okay. And we don't know what those flights are for, right?
No.
And how many flights are you claiming he paid or that she paid for him?
On this page here or in total?
Total?
I'd have to review the whole document to see it.
Go ahead. If you need to do that, refresh your recollection, go ahead.
Can I use my exhibit here?
Absolutely, please.
That would explain why it was an abrupt sidebar. But should we put wagers on whether that was a YouTuber or a TikToker or not?
Appears to be just 2 flights.
And those would be on the 2019 of January and March of 2019, correct?
Yes.
That really has nothing to do with the death of Charles Vallow, does it?
No.
Okay. What it has to do is apparently one of them's buying flights for the other, right?
Yes.
And it's not really suggesting anything else other than that, right?
No.
Okay. Okay. Did you happen to know the facts surrounding Charles Vallow's death?
I don't know all the facts, but I'm aware of some of them.
And you're also aware that Chad Daybell hasn't been criminally implicated in being charged with any of the matters relating to Charles Vallow, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So when we're looking at when they met, and at the top where you said Charles Vallow's death, all due respect, officers, this seems to be implying that in some way buying 2 tickets, Lori Vallow buying Chad Daybell 2 tickets somehow implicates him in that. That's not what you're suggesting, is it?
No.
Okay.
See?
Now you
Okay. It's
mentioned, and Judge,
very
can I have
often-
Exhibit 34? And I'm going to move for admission of G through, I think it's J. The ones that have not been admitted as of yet. I think A through F have been admitted. The remainder on that drive, I'm asking to be admitted by stipulation of the parties, Judge.
All right, it's on a thumb drive, Mr. Pryor.
Yeah, if I could have the thumb drive, Judge, I can take the exhibit, plug it in, and then discuss what I need to discuss with the officer.
Okay, you can go ahead and plug that in. Before we publish anything, we need to go through whether or not these additional exhibits are admitted or not.
They've been stipulated, Judge's admission,
Okay,
the state and myself.
so G through J, the state does not object to them being admitted. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Without seeing it on the screen, I'm not exactly sure what this exhibit is, though, at the
All right.
moment.
If you'll just speak up, if you see something you believe was not admitted by stipulation, I'll rule at this point Exhibit 34 remaining documents G through J are admitted. And Mr. Pryor, perhaps you could make a proffer of what each one is before you publish it, just so the state's aware.
Okay, and Judge, just so all the parties understand, those are just emails by Alex Cox, or excuse me, emails. Those are searches by Alex Cox in relation to firearms during a pertinent period. And that's what those were. And Judge, they are part and parcel of the mass stipulation regarding all of the contents of, I think it's Homer J. Maximus on exhibit number 34, which by agreement of the prosecution, the state, all of the contents of the Homer J. Maximus account are stipulated to be admissible.
Okay,
May I proceed, Your Honor?
you may.
So, officer, we're going to switch again. You testified about the records as they relate to Alex Cox and the period of time when there were some interest in firearms, correct?
Correct.
And what I heard your testimony, at least the way I took it, is that you're suggesting that that's the only time that Alex Cox ever looked at firearms.
Objection misstates the testimony.
I'll rephrase.
Go ahead.
Are you suggesting that that was the only time that Alex Cox ever looked at firearms?
No.
Okay, so the purpose of identifying firearms during that specific period was just to show that on his purchases, he seemed to buy a lot of firearms at that time.
In that short amount of time, correct.
Okay. Were you aware that he had looked at firearms on other occasions?
No.
Are you aware of anything that would prevent Alex Cox from purchasing firearms?
No.
Were you aware in anything in previous life as it related to Alex Cox, a felony conviction that would prevent Alex Cox from purchasing firearms?
I understand that there was an arrest, but it did not hamper or hinder his ability to obtain firearms.
Okay, and the nature of that arrest was what?
I believe it was a
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. I think that pursuant to the court's earlier order, I don't think this can go any further.
Also, Sam,
irrelevant.
is calling for something that's I've considered irrelevant, but if you want to re-ask the question, Mr. Pryor, as it just relates to the type of charge or conviction.
So there was a felony conviction, or there was a felony conviction of Alex Cox in what year, sir?
Unknown year. I don't know what year it was.
In his previous history.
Yes.
Okay. And as a result of that, you're not aware of whether or not that was a restriction on his ability to purchase firearms. Is that right?
My understanding is that the arrest or the plea agreement or something to that effect didn't violate or hinder his ability to obtain firearms. That's my understanding of it.
Okay. So in other words, the disposition and after the disposition, when he was sentenced and it was resolved, your position is that it didn't inhibit him in any way to pursue or an interest in any kind of firearms.
It's my understanding.
And where did you gain that knowledge from?
I don't recall. It was, I don't recall specifically where I heard that.
Okay. Judge, I'm just waiting for this to queue up. There we are. So again, as part of your, and we may not have to go into this, but as part of your determination, all you were really looking at during that period was an interest in a purchase of firearms in that specific period, correct?
If we were looking for that specifically, but it did, having reviewed the documents for the year of 2019, in that short amount of time, there was some purchases being made.
Okay. But you didn't look back in any other periods, is that right?
No,
You didn't.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We were just looking in a specific time frame for
Okay.
JJ and Tylee.
Okay. And you mentioned a shooting of Tammy Daybell. Is that right?
Yes.
And were you aware that the evidence as far as Tammy Daybell is that she was alleging that it was a paintball gun?
I'm aware of that.
Okay, so how is it that talking to this jury about all these purchases of firearms has anything to do with a paintball incident?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Overruled.
You can answer it, sir.
Repeat the question, please.
How is all of the purchase of these firearms during that period have anything to do with Tammy Daybell having a paintball gun shot at her?
As far as the timeline was concerned, it doesn't, but
Okay.
it was on the timeline of events for the year.
Oh, okay. And you chose which events are on the timeline, right?
There were major events, if you will, for key dates.
Okay. And some of those major events were a paintball gun being shot at you, right?
Yes.
Okay. I
Look at the screen.
at any time during the review of all of the bank records, did Chad and Lori ever have a joint account at any time?
I don't believe they did,
Okay,
even after they were married.
right. They never commingled their money, did they?
Not that we were, no.
Okay. Yet Alex and Lori did, right?
Yes, on that one account, yes.
Okay. Now you talked about Tylee's bank account and how you believe that it was used after what you feel is the date that Tylee had the last known proof of life, right?
What account was that?
Well, it was the account where you talked about the Costa Vida, the 2 trips to Costa Vida.
That would be her BBVA account, yes.
Okay. Did you look into who were the participants in that Costa Vida?
Yeah, we attempted to. I went down in person and met with the managers of both stores. We obtained the receipts for them, and we were asking if they had any kind of video or anything that would show whether it was a take-in or a takeout or a dine-in.
Right.
And there was no video. Too much time had passed for any video feed to show exactly who used the card. But we know when that Tylee's phone was in the immediate area of the cell tower footage, or in the range of the cell towers next to the Costa Vida that would fall into that area. And based on when Chad and Lori were detained in Hawaii in possession of Tylee's phone, that led us to believe that it was not Tylee that made that purchase.
Okay.
In Costa Vida.
And I appreciate that, but I'm grateful for you to point out that you took the liberty of looking at the GPS information for Tylee's phone. I appreciate that. Did you happen to look at the GPS information as it relates to Alex Cox on both of those days and whether he was at the Costa Vida?
I did not review those.
Would it surprise you that it was Alex Cox at the Costa Vida on both of those instances with Lori Vallow using that particular account? Would that surprise you?
Objection, facts not in evidence.
I just asked him if it surprised him, Judge.
Well, the way it's asked, I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. So you didn't look at Alex Cox's GPS records to determine whether Alex Cox was one of the people at Costa Vida during that luncheon and the use of Tylee's card, right?
I just know that Tylee's phone was down in that
Okay.
area, and that's all I can testify to.
Okay. But you didn't go any further. You had access to the GPS records of those folks, right?
I did not. I would go and ask, and and then information would come back just to follow up on information. That's all. I didn't
Well,
review.
so as part of a law enforcement cooperative with all of these folks, you weren't sharing GPS information with the other agencies regarding Alex Cox's GPS information?
Not a forensic computer analysis.
Okay.
That's not my position at the police department. So
Well,
I didn't have physical custody of that.
Well, and I guess that's why I'm wondering how important this information is that the card was used, because you had the ability to check Alex Cox's phone to determine he was there, right?
The ability.
Yeah, you had the ability to inquire from one of the many agencies working on this thing as to determine who exactly was there, because you had everybody's phones, right?
Tylee's card was used and Tylee's phone was in that immediate area. That's all the information I had.
So you're not looking to suggest by telling this jury that the card was used illegally, that it was people who were engaged in, you're not suggesting Mr. Daybell was there, are you?
That's unknown. I don't know.
Well, and that's what thank you for saying that, because I'm trying to figure out what was the purpose of you telling this jury that the card was used unlawfully. Was it to shed light on somebody, or to maybe create a hunch that maybe Mr. Daybell was there when he wasn't?
Argumentative.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
The fact is, you didn't go the extra step to find the unknown as to who was using the card, did you?
I went the extra step and went down to see if there was video of somebody using the card, and just knowing that the record of Tylee's phone being used. There was no other record of Tylee being around. So that's followed up on.
And I think maybe we're not communicating very clearly. So maybe I need to make it a little clearer. I understand you're saying Tylee wasn't there to use that, but you didn't look into who was using it, did you?
Objection, misstates the testimony. He testified that he did look into that.
Did
Sustained.
you? Did you?
You didn't use any additional GPS information to pin down exactly who was there using the phone, did you?
No.
Okay. Now, there's no information to suggest that Chad Daybell took any of the funds from the Social Security of Tylee or JJ, right?
Correct.
Okay. So those allegations have to do with Lori Vallow.
Yes.
So in regards to Chad Daybell, the issues of all that Social Security and then the money that was taken is just a reflection on Lori Vallow. It's not a reflection on Chad Daybell, is it?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, that will conclude the cross. Mr. Wood, if you'd like to redirect, you may.
Just very briefly. Detective, just for clarity, was one of your assignments to review the finances of some of the individuals in this case?
Yes.
Were you responsible for GPS data?
No.
Detective, you were asked about on your timeline the significance of Lori Vallow booking flights for Chad Daybell.
Yes.
Why was that significant to your investigation?
In the totality of the travel timeline, it shows when they meet, and then Lori begins buying Chad's flights, paying for Chad's flights, and then Lori traveling to Idaho quite a few times during that window.
So defense counsel asked you about whether or not Mr. Daybell was traveling for business purposes when Lori booked him those flights, correct?
Yes.
In all your review of the finances, are you aware of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell being in a business together?
No.
But were they in a relationship together?
I believe so. Yes.
And counsel asked you about the Social Security funds that Lori Vallow received.
Yes.
Was she married to Chad Daybell when she received some of those funds?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And I don't believe that opens up any grounds for cross. So that will conclude the testimony then of Detective Consitis. Is this witness going to be recalled, counsel?
Your Honor, he will be.
All right.
And he's under subpoena from my office as well, Judge.
All right. So Detective Consitis, then this exclusionary rule still prohibits you from viewing any of the testimony or discussing in your testimony with others that testify in the trial between now and the time you're recalled. I mentioned that because this case is being live streamed, so please don't access or watch the case, and I'll be questioning you as to whether or not you followed this instruction before you return for testimony later, whenever that occurs. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys were looking, but I just put up the Zillow for it. Zillow tends to be off on its estimates, but that still seems high for me. Maybe it's because the property is pretty big. You get a lot of property with it, but Rexburg, Idaho, that's East Idaho.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bailiff, for clearing off the witness stand there. Is the state ready to call another witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who will that be?
The state would call Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas.
You happen to know what his title is?
A forensic accountant.
Okay.
More financials. This is probably about how Lori tried to fudge things. More Lori fudging things.
More further testimony you're about to be able to do the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And Your Honor, before I inquire, I do have courtesy copies for the court of his exhibits. And then this goes to the defense.
Okay, I'll have the bailiff submit those.
So much. Shit.
All right, the witness has now been sworn. Let me just inquire before you begin testifying, based on the court's exclusionary rule. Have you watched any of this testimony that's occurred in the trial thus far?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, have you talked to anyone else about their testimony that they've provided in the case?
No, sir.
All right. With that affirmation, then, Mr. Wood, if you'd like to inquire, you may.
Thank you. And before I do, can I just verify with the court that State's Exhibit 77 has been admitted?
Yes. Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Douglas, can you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Michael Douglas, Douglass.
What is your occupation?
I'm a forensic accountant,
And who do you work for?
the FBI or the Federal Bureau of Investigations.
How long have you worked for the FBI?
Nearly 7 years. I'm close enough.
And what work did you do before that?
I was a tax and fraud auditor for the State Tax Commission for 4 years.
Is there a title beyond forensic accountant that we should call you, or is Mr. Douglas okay?
Mr. Douglas is fine.
Okay. And tell me what a forensic accountant does.
In sum, we review electronic and financial data, create a financial analysis, provide this information to the investigative team, discuss this with the prosecutors, hold interviews with subjects and witnesses, and testify to our findings.
Right. And when you do a forensic accounting, do you just look at bank accounts, financial records? Do you take other, well, I'll just ask it like that. Do you only look at bank accounts and financial records?
No.
What else do you do?
Individual search history usually provides additional data where they might be banking at. So search history is one. Apps that they have on their phone would be another. So in some electronic data, as well as the financials, provide us additional information where to search records.
Right. And in terms of your investigation overall, do you look at an investigation as a whole when you're doing a forensic accounting to see how the finances might affect other events?
We do, yes.
How did you become involved in the case regarding Mr. Daybell?
My office had been involved with the investigation for a few months before I was inquired to be upon the investigation or in the investigation. I was told that there was a voluminous amount of financial records and requests that had gone out, and sought out to review that information.
And so tell us about some of the work you did. How did
First, a lot of the work we did before we got on the P had sent multiple search warrants and finance records and that information. It brought on around March of 2020. A lot of the records were starting to come in, and started reviewing just as it trickled in, and built a large spreadsheet of whose account, whose transactions these were, what bank they were affiliated with. And it got to the tune of nearly 80 bank accounts and credit cards.
All right.
Statements.
And you said the PD. Can you tell the jury
Sorry.
what the PD is?
The Rexburg Police Department. Sorry.
And so you worked for the FBI, but you worked with the Rexburg Police Department at some level in this case.
I did.
All right. And I'm sorry, you said approximately 80 accounts were looked at.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello again, everybody coming in.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that Can I have the witness be handed States Exhibit 111? Detective, is part of, well, I'll wait till you get that.
Thank you.
Are you familiar with States Exhibit 111?
I am.
What does it purport to be?
This is a timeline that I created regarding Tylee's bank account records, including her JP Morgan Chase account and her BBVA, or as I also call it, her Compass account, and the transactions that took place monthly in each.
Is the full name of BBVA Compass?
It's a Southern bank, but yeah, BBVA Compass is the full.
And so, as part of your investigation, did you do a review of Tylee's finances?
I did.
And what did that entail?
So with Tylee's, originally we had a much smaller, we had to send a supplemental request to get the full data. Tylee was a minor, so she had a bank account with her mother, Lori. And this included what will be noted as in blue as the JP Morgan Chase account, 3918 deposits. Tylee was receiving Social Security, as I'll discuss later, from the death of her father, Joe Ryan. And these deposits, that's what the blue indicates. The orange is indicative of the transactions that were taking place in this account. And then Lori and Tylee opened Tylee's BBVA Compass account ending 5794. The deposits that go into this, I'll explain later. These come from an account that Lori had with BBVA. And then the withdrawals will be noted in red of the transactions that took place starting in August and in March of 2020.
And so on States Exhibit 111, is this a document you created?
Yes,
And is it is the purpose of this document to demonstrate the level of transactions in these accounts over a given period of time?
it is.
And did you prepare this
I did.
based on those bank accounts you just discussed?
Correct.
And did you do that in preparation for your testimony today?
I did.
Is it your belief that this would aid the jury in understanding the level of transactions over time in Tylee Ryan's bank accounts?
Yes,
And is this a true and accurate copy of what you created?
this is. Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that States Exhibit 111 be admitted into evidence for demonstrative purposes.
For demonstrative purposes, there's no objection, Your Honor.
Very well. Exhibit 111 is admitted.
And may I publish?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Please.
Just right.
And Mr. Douglas, you kind of described it earlier, but can you walk us through how you created this document?
So the original data I took from the bank statements that came in from the bank, put that into an Excel spreadsheet, and then basically separated that data out monthly to show deposits and withdrawals that took place within the accounts, and over time, the change in the accounts specifically to August and September.
All right, and this graph represents the number of transactions, correct?
Correct.
Not a dollar amount.
No.
Okay. So what did you learn in your investigation as you put this together?
So first, I would like to say Tylee was very responsible with her money. I never saw a negative balance in her account, but this includes the deposits that were coming into her account, specifically from the money she was receiving from Social Security. And then as noted in orange, these were the monthly transactions, basically what I'll refer to as brick and mortar, as well as her electronic. She had electronic payments for her Apple account, her T-Mobile, as well as her Jeep that I'll discuss later.
And so on that graph, on August of 2019 to September of 2019, it appears there's a change in the number of transactions. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And why was that important to you in your investigation?
So Tylee had her JP Morgan account, as did her mother, Lori, had multiple JP Morgan accounts. Tylee was making her payments on time and had no reason for the change in her financial status. As I'll describe later, Tylee's Social Security payments get transferred from her JP Morgan account to her mother's BBVA account, her mother being Lori. To which it stays that way, like it never transfers back. This information in August shows that Tylee opens a BBVA Compass account, but the money that goes into it is transferred to her from Lori. Again, she doesn't ever get the money directly. I will also note that we'll discuss later that she had a job working for her uncle, Jeff Shiflett, Dr. Shiflett at J&S Investments too.
Right, and does that account for some of the deposits?
Yes, earlier in the beginning of 2019.
And again, just to clarify, those numbers just represent transaction numbers, not dollar amounts.
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed what's been marked as State's Exhibit 112.
I was just sitting here thinking that if
Judge, could we approach briefly?
Yes.
sidebar, I was just thinking that if this had happened to me when I was 16, 17, and they were going through my bank account, the detective certainly would not be sitting there going, Lenny was very responsible with her money. Definitely not when I was 16, 17. But of course, I didn't have the kind of income that she had at that time. Yeah. I definitely I was in my party mode at that time. I wasn't in my high rifter biffed. I was not in my responsible ambitious professional mode at that time. I had an abrupt change when I was in my 20s, a very, very abrupt change. And I went zip, and I changed into ambitious professional mode for many years. And then I had to clean up my financial messes from when I was not responsible. It's a painful thing to do, cleaning up your messes, because then you're like, Why didn't I just make the right decisions from the beginning? It's a hard lesson to learn. Yeah, that's sad, Solo. Kids get these fatalistic attitudes, and I was definitely one of them. I had that fatalistic attitude of, well, first of all, I took my youth for granted, right? I didn't even think about, saving for my retirement, not until later. Then I started saving for my retirement. But, when you're young, you don't think about all the stuff you have to do to save, right? All the things you don't think about that you're going to get older, you're going to get less employable. You're going to need more money as you get older for your kids, right? You don't think about all that stuff when you're a kid. And then also, you also think that when you start earning a certain amount of money, and I got to this point where I was earning a lot of money, where I was like, oh, I can always earn this amount of money. No, 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 no. Don't think that. Don't think that you can always earn the same amount of money that you're earning. Unless you have it in your bank clear, it's all in your bank. You will not always have the same earning capacity. That's why you have to save. Adulting, and that's these thoughts that I'm having right now kind of go into the thought of the day that I put up earlier on my other channel. In case you haven't seen it yet, I put this thought of the day up on my other channel. I put these thoughts of the day up every few days on Checkmate Humanity. Some people grow up and some people get older. Make sure you know the difference. And make sure you know the difference for yourself, and make sure you know the difference in other people. It'll make your quality of life a hell of a lot better. And growing up means taking responsible for your own financial well-being. Right? Being able to independently financially take care of yourself. And that's a lot easier said than done. And there's evidence right here on YouTube in the true crime begging community that not a lot of people, when they grow up to be adults, have learned that capacity. Yeah, don't be a dick like Rocket Man. Well, and then there's, sometimes I think of phrases, I like to have ideas for the things I say on both of my channels, especially on.
Was a co-signer on, and they co-signed on this Jeep April 17th of 2019. And Tylee started making those payments June 3rd of 2019. And then, as noted below, in July 11th of 2019, this is when Charles Vallow dies.
Right. And Charles Vallow was Tylee's stepfather.
Correct.
And this is still the same timeline, correct?
This is the same timeline.
Can you tell us about the first couple of boxes?
So I was given this information that through Lori's iCloud account that July 18th of 2019, Lori had texted Chad that she would not be receiving life insurance money regarding the death of Charles Vallow, but she would be receiving $4,000 a month Social Security. July 24th of 19, this is the last Social Security payment deposited into Tylee's JP Morgan Chase account, and in 3918.
Okay. It looks like on 8/12/19, this is kind of a different subject. What happened there?
So we found out that Lori had a life insurance policy in her name to the tune of $2 million. And there was a change made on this life insurance policy, making Colby Ryan, Tylee's older brother, the sole beneficiary or 100% beneficiary.
So she didn't include JJ or Tylee on that.
They weren't included, no.
All right. Your Honor, the court had asked us to stop at 2:20.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. We will take a mid-afternoon recess at this time. We'll continue on till 3:30 today. To the extent we can keep this break a little shorter, if possible, to get all the jurors accommodated, perhaps 20 minutes, and we could come back on at 2:30.
You want to sit through this?
All rise, please.
Patricia, you made me feel a little bit weepy here. That's such a sweet limerick. Because when you said you were working on a limerick for me, I was like, uh-oh, it's going to be. That's really sweet. I sincerely appreciate that. It means a lot to me. Wow. And one of the reasons it makes me a little bit teary is because it reminds me, and this is going to sound super corny. I know it's going to sound super corny, but my grandmother was a prolific writer of poetry, prose, like rhyming poetry. What is that, what you call prose? I'm sorry, I'm not like a scholar when it comes to poetry. I mean, she made up rhyming poetry, and I'm gonna get this off the screen. It's a little distracting. And when I was 9 years old for my birthday, she wrote a poem called Lynn is Love. And I still have it. And when I got married, she got up and gave a speech and said, we love Lynn because Lynn is love. And then my all my ex-husband's friends started just calling me Lynn is love. And it was I know it sounds corny. But it's not a bad way to be thought of, Sorry, I had to mute because I miss my grandmother so much, and that made me think of my grandmother. So thank you so much, Patricia Burns. That really meant a lot to me. And it captured really the way I want the way I want people to feel. I'm glad you like those. I started putting those thoughts of the day up, because they help me, and so I want them to help other people. Air hug to you. Air hug to everybody in the chat. I really I I want other people to feel good about themselves and to feel accepted and loved. Unless they're an asshole to me, then, I want them to feel accepted and loved, but if they're an asshole to me, then they don't have to be accepted and loved by me. It's not my job to make them feel accepted and loved. Go deal with that yourself. It's not my job. You know what I'm saying? But there was a boy who crapped his pants and we all started to dance. He said, no, we said, whoa, then we got the paper for the man. Yeah, I mean, I miss all my elders from my family. My mom and my grandparents, her parents, were my people. They were my people. So shout out to all people missing their people. Shout out to all people missing their people. But I find it important to teach people, to empower people with the knowledge that I have that has helped me. And I think that, one of the reasons I put this type of information out there is to help seed that information so that they keep it in their head and they can use it to pass it on to other people. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, gosh, that's a nice thought. And then they pass it on to other people and it's a learning. And that's how you seed people with better thoughts and more cogent thoughts and more accepting thoughts and not so hateful. I just hate that people can be so fucking hateful to each other all the time. And especially when there's no apparent reason for it, then because it's somebody to make money off of. Just let's hate each other because it's a way to make money on the internet. Oh my God. It just drives me insane that it's a bash for it's literally bash for cash. It's literally bash for cash. So, and then it makes people like me who want to make other people feel good, also become somewhat, I'm not showing my best self all the time, right? When I'm sitting here calling out the worst behavior from Lana, I'm not showing my best self, right? I'm showing my anger and my bitterness because of the things that she's done to others and she's done to me. And I'd much rather help people feel good about themselves and about the world. But when I'm not feeling good about the world, it's hard to help other people feel good about the world. So, sometimes what I do when I'm not on, I take social media breaks, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you take social media breaks. And when I do, I spend time in nature. I live near the beach. I walk on the beach nearly every day with my dog. And I watch other content. And the other day I recommended a show on Netflix called Baby Reindeer. There's another Netflix special. It's a comedy special from Neil Brennan. And I recommend that as well because it's very heavily focused on social media. It's very free, very relevant to contemporary times. My dad used to say, when I was young and in my prime, I shit my trousers many a time. But now that I am old and gray, I only shit them twice a day. Oh my God. Is this or do you come from an Irish family or something? Thank you, Rifter Bift. I appreciate that. You know what's funny? You know what's funny about YouTube specifically is that I've noticed that the audience is kind of transient, and also that a lot of people change their names. And I'm not being critical. Again, I'm not being critical. I'm just noticing this, right? So I've noticed that sometimes like accounts will come in of people that I've never seen the account name before, but they seem to know me. So I'm assuming that they've changed their name from something that I might have known before. And it doesn't bother me at all because, honestly, I understand why they changed their name. I really do. I understand why they changed their name. It doesn't really, as long as you're respectful to me, it doesn't matter who comes into my chat. And you're respectful to me and you're respectful to others. So it's super interesting to me to have people, like they're I'm forgetting the name at this very moment, but someone came into chat a couple times recently and said, I've been watching Lynn since before the Gabby Petito days. Yeah. Okay. So Rifter Biff says, I change my name all the time. I understand that. I totally do. I completely understand that. And what I don't love is when someone comes at you as a total complete asshole one day and then changes their name and changes their entire opinion and stance in you is not an asshole. But you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like try to figure out who was who and who was an asshole yesterday and who isn't today. It doesn't change my life or anything. I just don't like phoniness. You know what I mean? But it's not like I'm going to sit here and try and figure it out. The only time I might try to spend a little time on it is when it's becoming an actual nuisance, like the way it was a nuisance when Lana and her posse were coming after me. When they were intentionally trying to make it a nuisance for me. It's important to steer the naive from the path of a hideous, evil soul such as Lana. Yes. You mean Rocket Man? Yes, I have Irish roots. I was born on St. Patrick's Day, hence my name. Oh, interesting. I am 59% Irish. I always thought that I was more Scandinavian, but then I did 23andMe and learned that I'm something like 20% Scandinavian. Yeah. Chopper, I think you're right. I used to think that I was more Scandinavian, but I'm English and Irish mostly. English and Irish. And then I'm Scandinavian and I have a weeny little bit of tiny, not enough to be able to put it on a claim form whatchamacallit, Native American. But I think everybody in my geographic location has that. So I was looking at updates from the Karen Reed trial, and it looks like they're just still doing voir dire And I guess Quentin Simon's mom was in court today for some motions. I guess she wanted her 911 calls to be thrown out. And I noticed that Alex Erickson went live about that. Was anybody in? I wasn't able to check out Alex's live. Did anybody check out Alex's live where they played the 911 calls? Because I'm curious about that. Is this it? I thought I pulled up a tab of it because I might just go ahead and play it myself. I'm definitely going to. You watched Harlot? Is it interesting, the 911 calls? So when Turtle Guy's trial doesn't start for a while, right? So Karen Reed's trial is in jury selection right now. And when the trial actually starts, I'll definitely do trial updates while Chad's trial is still going on. All right, I'm going to look for that while we're waiting for this break to end. And then if Karen's trial is still going on after Chad's trial is over, I'll cover the Karen Reed trial. But I don't know. Hold on. Sorry, I'm
or thereabouts. Yeah, that's.
I went back kind of late, around 12. 12? Okay. 12, I went to bed. I had my wisdom teeth removed yesterday. I'm sorry, that's it.
To the court are included, found interviews included the state's exhibit 3 in the exhibits that have been admitted. Now, did they ask her, did she tell them when she had gone to bed and when she had woken up?
Yes.
Okay. Could we please publish State's Exhibit 3 starting at 2 minutes and 10 seconds in? Or thereabouts. Yeah, that's fine.
Phone number. All right. Where's your fiance? That's him? I'll be with you in just a second, sir. I'm just going to ask you a few questions once I'm done with her, okay? All right. So when's the last time you saw your shot? When I went to bed last night. And what time was that? Do you remember? Around 12. 12? Okay. 12 when I went to bed. I had my wisdom teeth removed yesterday. I'm sorry, that's it. So I went to bed kind of late. I get you. Listen, I had them too. So I got up this morning about 9. About 9? And my front door is open, so I went up and I shut it, not thinking about anything like that. And I look over and check on my kids, and he was gone. All the rest were there. He was gone. It's all right. It's all right. Take some deep breaths. I'll start asking.
We stopped the playback at 2:57. So she spoke to Detective Wilkins willingly, right?
She did.
He didn't have to force anything out of her?
No.
And she told him that she had gone to bed at midnight, is that
Yes.
right? Or around midnight?
Yes.
Okay. At some point, did officers on scene, well, let me ask you this. Did she have a car at this time?
She did.
What type of car?
It is a Dodge Journey.
At some point, did officers on scene become aware that that car had been out driving around at a period in the early morning hours of October 5th? It was after the time that she said she had gone to bed.
Yes.
Can you tell us how that played out?
So the initial officers, including the lieutenant, this time Lieutenant Foster, relayed information about what was going on at the scene, such as the vehicle's tag numbers. Those tag numbers were taken by one of the detectives, still at the office, Detective Robbins, and she ran them in the flock camera system and saw that the vehicles were moving beyond what Ms. Leilani initially said.
Specifically the Journey.
Yes.
What is the flock camera system? Just
Yeah, it's I believe it's like a neighborhood camera system. It basically will take a photograph.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the 911 calls, but her initial interviews.
Of a vehicle.
you can.
Again, I'll just lodge the objection again.
Mr. Dean.
Now, my very next question is going to be, did Lieutenant Foster go and talk to her about that?
Okay,
Did you ask her a question, and did she answer it?
let's go there.
What does that look like? All of this bears directly on voluntariness.
Okay.
And I understand they're not trying to suppress that statement. I understand that. But the voluntariness of her statements that day, and to contextualize what brought her into the police department and how she was receptive of police questioning, I do think it is important to look at what kicked this investigation off, that she was answering questions willingly on scene and had in fact brought the police to her.
Okay, Mr. Hilliard.
Your Honor, when it comes to questions of voluntariness, the questions of voluntariness are simple. Was it a voluntary?
If they're ready, please have the jurors return to the courtroom.
We're back with Chad and Mr. Pryor. That's really cool lineage, Patricia. I have that on the schedule, Chad Dorman's trial. Also Chopper, but it's also, I'm looking, I might make a calendar for members. I'm just grappling with how to do it.
All right.
Oh, July is also Alec Baldwin.
The jury is present and accounted for.
All right, thank you. Please be seated.
I'm also wondering why Diddy hasn't been arrested after his house was raided.
Mr. Wood, you can continue with your direct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can continue publishing.
You may.
All right, Mr. Douglas, I believe when we left off, we talked about the box marked 8/12/2019.
That's correct.
Tell us about the next couple of boxes in your timeline.
So on August 14th of 2019, Lori applied for her Rexburg apartment, and on the application, she stated that she was receiving $5,740 Social Security due to a dead husband. 2 days later, August 16th of 2019, Tylee's Social Security payments received a change to be deposited into Lori's BBVA account ending 3229. On August 19th of 2019, Lori and Tylee opened Tylee's BBVA account, which ends in the 5794.
And just really quickly, that is a separate account than the sole BBVA account of Lori Vallow, correct?
Correct. Lori's ended in the 3229, Tylee's ended in the 5794.
Tell us about the box with under 8/28/2019.
So this is when Tylee's Social Security payments start being deposited into Lori's account ending 3229.
And what happened next?
Okay. And then as noted below, we have the move to Rexburg with Lori and the children. And then on September 8th of 2019, while Tylee received a text message from Colby. Colby was inquiring from Tylee for her to send him some money via Venmo. This was a regular occurrence, to which Tylee responded back that she couldn't Venmo him money because mom gets her money now. On the same day, as I stated before, I don't just review financial records, we review electronic data as well. Noted that Chad had searched the wind direction in his search history. And this is also the same day as the last known sighting of Tylee Ryan.
Hello, Jamie Lee. So he searched the wind direction. Huh.
What do you have on September 9th, 2019?
On September 9th, we discovered an email from Lori to her accountant that she had with her husband, Charles Vallow, gentleman by the name of Mike Edson. He was their tax accountant, and she was inquiring about a tax refund she hadn't received yet.
And the next day?
And then on the next day, on September 10th of 2019, Tylee's BBVA account is added as what's called a funding source to Venmo. In short, Venmo is a person-to-person transfer of funds to which you have to link your bank account or your credit card to it. Tylee's BBVA account had not yet been set up on her Venmo account. It was still would have been drawing out of any funds that were in the JP Morgan Chase account.
All right. And then what's marked for 9/20?
And then on 9/20, the data that was provided to us by JP Morgan, this is when Tylee's JP Morgan Chase account is completely closed and the remaining amount was withdrawn.
What happened on 9/22?
As indicated below, this is the last known sighting of JJ Vallow. There's also text information regarding phones associated with Tylee, Lori, and Colby, where either Lori is messaging one or the other or receiving a message from them in request of starting on 9/22 of 19 and including the other dates, October 1st, October 14th, November 22nd, and November 25th of 19. Of either requesting or stating that a Venmo payment would be sent to Colby.
And who was requesting Venmo payments?
Colby would request them, but these messages specifically were Lori either texting Tylee's account or Tylee's phone saying to send Colby money, or Lori would text Colby saying that she had transferred money into Tylee's account and Tylee would send the money to Colby.
What's the next event?
So on the bottom, on October 9th of 2019, this is a reported shooting at Miss Tammy Daybell. The following date,
Grounds. Response, Mr. Wood?
Your Honor, I think I think the evidence has shown so far that, especially with the way he said that, that is not an inaccurate statement.
All right, and I agree, looking at the time frame as well, or the timeline exhibit here, I'll overrule the objection.
What happened on October 10th?
On October 10th, so Venmo also provided the IP data regarding the transfers of the funds. And in regards to the IP data associated with Tylee's Venmo account on October 10th of 19, a transfer of funds from Tylee's bank account via Venmo was sent to Colby, with the IP being in Kansas City, Missouri.
And then if you just go through the last few boxes.
And then to finish up, on October 9th of 19, this is the reported death of Miss Tammy Daybell. On November 5th of 2019 being the wedding of Chad and Lori. And then on June 9th of 20 is the date that we discovered the bodies of Tylee and JJ.
And just to be clear, those dates are on there from what you testified to put this financial information in view of the complete timeline and investigation, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Douglas, we've been talking about Tylee and a financial timeline you prepared for her. In the course of your investigation, did you prepare a similar timeline for JJ and financial information regarding him?
I did.
Did you do that in preparation for your testimony?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 113.
I was just watching also news about those two women who were killed. And
Mr. Douglas, do you recognize State's Exhibit 113?
I'll type it
I do.
in chat.
What does it purport to be?
This is a similar timeline, but for JJ.
And you just testified that you prepared this.
I prepared this.
And did you do so in an effort to aid the jury in understanding the financial records regarding JJ Vallow?
That is correct.
And what did you use to create that timeline?
This one, there's similar data on this. Also included are some history from, again, Lori's her iCloud account, the rental agreement, and the Social Security and bank records.
And is that a true and accurate representation of the document you created?
It is.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes, I'd ask that State's Exhibit 113 be entered into evidence.
All right. Very well. State's Exhibit 113 is entered and admitted.
May I publish?
Yes.
Detective, is this the financial timeline we just spoke of?
It is.
Can you, where does this timeline begin?
This one, due to JJ not receiving Social Security funds until later into 2019, I started this with the date that is reported to be when Chad and Lori met.
All right, and then what's the next event?
The death of his father, Charles Vallow.
And that was on
July 11th of 19.
Walk us through the next couple of boxes.
Again, Lori texted Chad about receiving the $4,000 a month Social Security, but not receiving the life insurance money. JJ was reported to have an emotional support dog or a support dog of nature. And this on October 9th of 2019 is reported that Lori had posted this dog for sale on Animal Direct. On August 12th of 19, again, the life insurance money or life insurance policy being changed to Colby to the tune of $2 million that did not list JJ on it.
All right, and then, and that was the same that was on Lori's, or I apologize, on Tylee's?
On Tylee's, correct.
And what's the next date and what happened then?
On August 14th of 19, again, this is when Lori applied for the apartment in Rexburg. She stated that she'd be receiving the $5,740 Social Security. And then moving to this information on the bottom, September 1st, the move of Lori and the children to Rexburg. 9/8 being the last known sighting at Tylee. And then on September 18th of 2019, this is when the Social Security payments regarding JJ were deposited into Lori's account.
Then what happened after that?
And then on September 22nd is the last known sighting of JJ. And then to finish out October 9th, again, October 9th of 19, the incident with Tammy Daybell, October 19th being the death of Miss Daybell, Chad and Lori's wedding on November 5th of 19, and the remains of the children being found on June 9th of 20.
Mr. Douglas, we've spent a fair amount of time talking about finances and Social Security, correct?
Correct.
At any time, did you prepare an exhibit that showed the amount of Social Security paid out to that Lori Vallow received on behalf of her children after their last known sightings?
I did.
What did you use to prepare that?
That includes Lori's BBVA account information solely because that's where the funds were being deposited at the time.
And did you prepare that in preparation for your testimony today?
I did.
And did you do that to aid the jury in understanding the Social Security payments being made in this case?
That is correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 114. I would note that there is a 114A and B in evidence already, but not 114.
All right, thanks for the clarification, Mr. Wood.
Mr. Douglas, do you recognize State's Exhibit 114?
I do.
What does it purport to be?
This is the Social Security payment table that I created regarding the Social Security deposits being deposited into Lori Vallow's BBVA account.
All right, and is that a true and accurate representation of the chart you made?
It is.
Your Honor, I'd ask that for demonstrative purposes, Exhibit 114 be entered into evidence.
All right, without objection, then Exhibit 114 is admitted.
I know, walk away.
May I publish?
That's
Yes.
one of the things that kills me the most was all that stuff being taken away from him systematically before.
Mr. Douglas, can you explain how you put this chart together?
So this information is derived, again, just solely from the deposits of Social Security into Lori's BBVA account. As reflected on here, I labeled each account as to the individual that the money was being deposited from or the benefits from. And the benefits come from the information from the deceased fathers.
All right, and under the section for Tylee, what is the first date you have marked?
The first date being October 23rd of 19.
And why is that the first date you put there?
We chose that date, or I chose that date, because Social Security is paid later, or back paid. And I didn't feel that it was fair to include payments in September, even though, given the time of death for Tylee, we felt that this was more accurate representation of the funds after the death of the child.
So, okay, so that's the first payment she receives
Mhm.
after you believe that Tylee is deceased.
Correct.
And for JJ, is that, I see a box marked 10/16/2019.
Correct. This would have been the first deposit of his. It is noteworthy that it's obvious that Tylee's deposits were different than JJ and Lori's, to the fact that this is when Tylee's benefits were being deposited into her JP Morgan account and carried forward. That was paid later in the month and on a separate date than JJ and Lori's deposits,
All right.
with the date being October 16th of 19.
And then it looks like you have two sections for Lori. Why is that?
I can't testify to the reason that the box with TCS Treasury 449 being less information given to me, that it could be due to bad debts. It could be college funds that weren't paid, but it was being docked for some reason, but I can't testify to it.
Okay, but is the reason it's in a different box just that it's a different amount?
Yeah, that's how it's reflected per her bank statement.
And is there a total amount of money received after what you believe to be the deaths of Tylee and JJ?
Yes, the grand total down the bottom right being the $22,545.05.
Thank you. Detective, as part of your investigation and preparation for today, did you prepare a timeline that identifies what you see as the theft of financial funds from the Social Security Administration?
I did.
How did you prepare that?
Again, given the information from bank statements and the Social Security information, the time of death of the children, search history reflected information, text messages, emails.
And is some of that information also reflected in the last two documents we've looked at?
That's correct.
But you've included other information as well.
I did.
Did you prepare that document in preparation for your testimony today?
Yes.
And did you do so in an effort to aid the jury in understanding this complete financial timeline?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 115. Mr. Douglas, do you recognize State's Exhibit 115?
I do.
What is it?
Is what I titled the Grand Theft Financial Timeline.
And is this the document we were just speaking of?
Yes.
Is an accurate representation of what you created to aid the jury in understanding this?
It is.
Your Honor, I'd ask that for demonstrative purposes that Exhibit 115 be entered into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor. Thank you.
Exhibit 115 is entered.
And may I publish?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas, can you walk us through the first few steps of this timeline?
Well, starting again with on April 3rd of 2018, the death of Joe Ryan, and June 14th of 2018, this is when the Social Security starts being deposited into Tylee's JP Morgan Chase account, ending 3918. When Lori opens her BBVA account, ending 3229 on October 23rd of 18. The life insurance proceeds being paid out to Lori on October 26th of 18, also being the same date that Lori and Chad met. The death of Charles Vallow on July 11th of 19. On July 12th, Lori's bank card, Bank of Hawaii, is used to make a payment to Valley of the Sun Mortuary. And this being the same day that Chad calls Valley of the Sun Mortuary.
Okay. And then what happened next?
On July 18th of 19, Lori texts Chad about receiving the $4,000 a month Social Security and not receiving the life insurance. July 24th of 19, this being the last date that Social Security is deposited into Tylee's JP Morgan Chase account, ending 3918.
Can you walk us through the first couple of boxes there?
On August 12th of 19, this being the date of the change to Colby for the life insurance of Miss Lori. On August 14th of 19, Lori applying for the Rexburg apartment, stating that she's receiving the $5,746 in Social Security. On August 16th of 19, this is when Tylee's payments are changed to be deposited into Lori's BBVA account, ending 3229. On August 19th of 19, Lori and Tylee opened Tylee's BBVA account, ending 5794. On August 28th of 19, this being the date that Tylee's Social Security deposit or payments being deposited into Lori's BBVA account, ending 3229. Lori and the children moving to Rexburg on September 1st of 19. The text messages from Tylee to Colby that mom gets her gets her money now. And this is also the date that Tammy's life insurance with LifeMap was increased on September 8th of 19. And also this being the same date, the last known sighting of Tylee Ryan on September 8th of 19.
And what happened on the 10th?
On November 10th of 19, Tylee's BBVA account is as the funding source to her Venmo account.
And what happened on 9/18 of 2019?
On 9/18 of 19, this being the date that Lori and JJ's Social Security funds start being deposited into her BBVA account, ending 3229. On September 22nd of 19, the text messages referring to the Venmoing money to Colby, also being the last known sighting of JJ on September 22nd of 19.
And if you can move to 10/9/19.
On 10/9, this being the date of the attempted shooting on Miss Tammy. On 10/10, this being the Venmo activity that took place in Kansas City, Missouri regarding Tylee's Venmo account. The death of Miss Tammy on October 19th of 19. Chad and Lori's wedding on 11/5 of 19. We recovered an email to a rental company named Kauai Dreams on 11/8 of 19, where Chad was inquiring, stating that they were a clean couple with no kids and no pets. On December 20th of 19, this is when Rexburg announced the investigation. January 3rd of 20 being the first search on Chad's property, and June 9th of 20 being the second search where we recovered the remains of the children.
Mr. Douglas, those last several exhibits dealt primarily with the Social Security funds of Tylee and JJ. Did you review financial documents related to Chad Daybell?
I did.
What documents did you look at?
Primarily his Mountain America Credit Union account, including his personal and the business Spring Creek account. But there was also credit cards that were included that we found that we researched as well.
All right. And did you also look at life insurance?
Oh, yes, the life insurance for Tammy, the 2 policies.
Detective, in preparing for your testimony today, did you, if I could have one moment, I think I have the.
Walkway. I don't think they have any murders at all, or very many murders at all.
All right. In preparation for your testimony today, did you prepare another financial timeline
Or at least up until
that focused
then.
more on Chad Daybell?
I did.
And did you do that in preparation? Well, I just asked that for your testimony today. Did you do that in order to aid the jury to understand the financial documents and time frame in which these transactions took place related to this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that the witness be handed State's Exhibit 116.
I mean,
Thanks.
it just goes to show they lived in this other like reality where
Mr. Douglas, do you recognize State's Exhibit 116?
Chad was the truth. You know, he sets the law
I
of
do.
the truth.
What does it purport to be?
This is a financial timeline regarding Chad and Tammy's finances to also include information regarding Lori and life insurance and travel information.
And is this this is the document we were just previously speaking of?
Correct.
Is this a true and accurate representation of the document you created?
It is.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes, I'd ask that State's Exhibit 116 be entered into testimony.
No objection.
Into evidence. I apologize.
Exhibit 116 is entered and admitted into evidence.
May I publish?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas, can you walk us through the first few steps of this timeline?
I can. October 3rd of 2018 being the first date that I can report that Chad Daybell had purchased a prepaid phone. October 26th of 18 also being the date that Chad and Lori met. On February 23rd of 19, Alex's Barclay card was used to purchase a flight from Lori, or for Lori to Idaho Falls. March 14th of 19, Lori's Barclay card is used to purchase a flight for Chad to Arizona.
To be clear, that Barclay account, that was Alex Cox's account that she had a card on, correct?
Correct. Originally, it was just in Alex's name, but in March, Lori is added as a card holder to where she had her own card on Alex's account.
And what happened next on your timeline?
April 22nd of 19, Lori paid for Chad's flight to Houston using her BBVA account. May 31st of 19, prepaid phone purchase by Chad. Also June 17th of 19, another prepaid phone purchase by Chad. The death of Charles Vallow, July 11th of 19, Lori's Bank of Hawaii card being used to make the payment to Valley of the Sun Mortuary, and Chad calling Valley of the Sun Mortuary. On July 18th of 19, Lori texting Chad that she'd be receiving the Social Security, but not the life insurance money.
What do you have marked for July 20th of 2019?
That is the day that Lori used her Bank of Hawaii card to purchase a flight for Chad to Arizona. This took place again August 2nd of 19. Lori's Barclay card is used to purchase a flight for Chad to Arizona. August 10th of 19, Lori's Barclay card is used to purchase her flight into Idaho Falls.
And just for clarity, is the Idaho Falls airport the closest airport to Rexburg, Idaho?
That I know of, aside from flying directly into Rexburg.
Let me rephrase that. Is it the closest airport that you can take commercial flights into?
Yes.
Okay. If you can go through the next couple of slides.
On September 1st of 19, this being the move of Lori and the kids to Rexburg, Miss Tammy's increase of her life insurance on September 8th of 19 regarding Life Map, also being the last known date, last known sighting of Tylee. On September 18th of 19, Chad purchased another prepaid phone. On September 22nd of 19, this being the last known sighting of JJ. On October 8th of 19, Chad initiated a refinance with Wells Fargo. On October 9th of 19, the attempted shooting with Miss Tammy. October 19th of 19, Tammy's death. On October 24th of 19, this is when Chad filed with the life insurance company Primerica, and this is when he canceled the refinance with Wells Fargo. And October 30th of 19, Chad files his life insurance claim with LifeMap.
You can start us on November 1st, 2019.
On November 1st of 19, Chad received his final check and resigned from LDS Avow.
If you can pause, what is Avow? LDS Avow.
LDS Avow, the Chad would write a column for LDS Avow. Mr. Chris Perrett is his business that he oversees, and he would give Chad a percentage of the fees that he acquired regarding those that would read Chad's column.
And November 5th.
On November 5th, this being the wedding of Chad and Lori. On November 18th, Chad purchased a SIM card and a total wireless phone card. November 29th of 19, this is the trip to Knott's Berry Farms. The information that we acquired from Knott's Berry Farms included a ticket for Chad, 5 of his kids or in-laws, as well as one for Lori. December 20th, 19.
On those financial records, did it list the names of who those tickets were purchased for?
So Knott's Berry Farms was able to produce copies of the tickets that included the names of the individuals. December 20th of 19, Rexburg announced the investigation into Chad, let me restate that. December 20th of 19, Rexburg PD announced the investigation. I also noted that Chad had transferred $1,000 each to 3 of his older children, specifically the children that live near him in the Rexburg area.
And when you say the Rexburg Police Department announced an investigation, what investigation did they announce that day?
At this time, it was the missing of the children. The children were missing at this time and trying to locate the children.
And on January 3rd?
On January 3rd of 20, this being the first search of Chad's property, I also noted that there were 2 transfers to Chad's middle son, Seth, from one being from his business account, one being from his personal account with Mountain America, to the tune of $1,500 to his son, to his son, Seth, that day. March 6th of 20, this is the date that Lori was extradited from Hawaii to Idaho. On March 8th of 20, Chad sells his Dodge Dakota and his Chevy Equinox to his two daughters. They both reimbursed him $200 each for both vehicles. And on June 9th of 20, we discovered that Chad had transferred $8,000 each to his 3 older children that lived in the area the morning of the search, and this being the same date that we located JJ and Tylee's bodies on the property.
Your Honor, they're already in evidence. I'm going to ask to publish States Exhibit 77G and H.
Okay, since they've already been admitted, they may be published.
Mr. Douglas, do you recognize States Exhibit 77G?
I do.
What is that?
This, can you scroll or bring it down just a little bit? This account ending 3007 would have been Chad's personal account with Mountain America.
And why was this document of interest to you?
So again, with the date right there, June 9th.
Do you have a pointer?
I do.
You could point to
Yeah.
what you're speaking about.
So June, yeah, twist this here. So on June 9th, there was a transfer of the $10,000 into Chad's from his Spring Creek book account that he had that we'll discuss in a second. The $10,000 making the balance, this $20,000 and change here, and then transfers to his son Seth on June 9th to the tune of $8,000. And then another transfer June 9th to his, the account is in the name of Joseph Murray, but this is also his oldest daughter, Emma's account for $8,000 as well, leaving an account balance of the $4,400.
And this is still 77G, second page. Was there anything of note to you regarding your investigation on this page?
So this one shows the savings account that was associated with Chad's personal account. And on the same date of June 9th, a transfer to his oldest son, Garth Daybell, an $8,000 transfer that date as well.
And this is 77H. Do you recognize this document?
I do.
What is it?
This is the transfer data that Mountain America was able to provide regarding the transfers of the $10,000 into the account that I just spoke of, and then the 3 transfers to the 3 oldest children. And it also includes the date and time of the transfers.
And so I think you've already testified that the date was June 9th, correct?
Correct.
What time, and if you can point, I understand it's small, to the time those transfers were made.
Yeah, this thing here. The transfers taking place right here in this area here, right around 9:50 in the morning. And as indicated, they took place Mountain Standard Time, so it would have been 9:50 local.
Your Honor, I have just a couple more exhibits with this witness, but I think they'll probably take more than the 6 minutes. And it would probably be easier to just start with them in the morning. I understand that's 6 minutes early, but I think this would be a good place to stop and continue in the morning.
Okay, I think that makes sense as well, Mr. Wood. Thanks for watching the clock on that. We will conclude with evidence for today then, and I'll go ahead and announce our schedule as well for tomorrow, the rest of the week. We'll continue on with the same schedule basically tomorrow as well as Friday, 8:30 to 3:30. And I do want to, of course, again, advise the jurors before we break for the day to please follow the court's admonishing instruction to not look into this case in any way while you are home for the evening. Don't do anything to research it. Don't discuss it amongst yourselves or with anyone else. And with that, is the state ready to conclude for the day?
Yes, Your Honor, if that's all right with the court.
Yes, anything further from the defense? Okay, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, that have been in attendance today for abiding with the court's conduct orders. We will be in recess until tomorrow morning to commence with more evidence at 8:30.
All rise, please.
My guess about knots is that either it's a sentimental place, because my understanding is that Chad used to live in Southern California. So maybe it was just a sentimental place for him. Or Knott's, I think, is probably, of all the amusement parks in California, one of the lesser expensive ones, because, they had a big party. They had all of Chad's kids, and then Chad and Lori and maybe others, maybe Alex. I don't remember all the people who went. But it's definitely less expensive than Disney. Disney is ridiculously expensive. And they probably wanted to be in that particular area of Southern California. If I recall correctly, he grew up kind of in that general vicinity, not in the San Diego area. San Diego is much further south. San Diego is the next closest area where there are good amusement parks, like SeaWorld and Legoland and Universal. And then there's Universal in Hollywood, and that's a good one. And then there's Disneyland, and those are super expensive. They just are. So that's my guess about the whole Knott's thing. I'd be interested in hearing the feedback after that trip of whether what they thought about Knott's Berry Farm did it meet their expectations? Because by Riff It or Biff It, did it meet their expectations? Because it's really not that great of a park. At least the last time I went there, I was fairly underwhelmed with it. The rides are pretty old. And man, we keep hearing of more amusement park catastrophes, rides breaking down, people dying on rides. So, and you guys are talking about missions and stuff. So I have a former client who is a former LDS member who went to a mission in Ecuador. His mission was in Ecuador, and he was, like 1920 when he went to this mission in Ecuador. And then he came back and got married and did all the stuff he was supposed to do, but he sank into a horrible, horrible depression after having 5 kids. And then he left his family. Actually, sorry, he started up Braintree, which was like this business to business payment service, which was sold to PayPal, it was sold to PayPal for $800 million. And now he has this channel on YouTube because he left his family, and now he pours all of his money into trying to figure out how to extend human life. He's doing everything in his power. He's sinking all of his entire fortune into trying to figure out how to extend human life, into helping us live forever. And he was my client for about a year, several years ago, and to see his transformation has been very interesting. And I've seen a lot of people from the LDS church go through that transition. It's really interesting. I haven't heard anything about that trip to Knott's, but there have been reports about how when the kids met Lori, they liked her, and they still like her. I mean, there was even, in that call between that body cam when they were arresting Chad, Emma, his daughter, was talking about how she has regular conversations with Lori in jail. It's just so how all this stuff is so normalized is just so bizarre to me. All this stuff is just normalized. Oh yeah, I was just talking to Lori, the woman that you married just a few days after our mom died suddenly. It's just so jarring. And then this is why I'm streaming this particular trial. Everything about this case and this family and these people have always blown me away. I don't get it. How people can think and be this way. I just don't get it, you guys. And I've always been just fascinated about analyzing people and why they do what they do. So anyway, I will see you all tomorrow for day 6. And maybe there will be more exciting things to talk about on the Karen Reed front and other court updates to bring to you. Otherwise, have a lovely rest of your day. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. His name is Brian Johnson, Walk Away, Renee. And the last time I saw a video from him, and that's what his channel name is, Brian Johnson. The last time I saw a video from him, it was him updating his audience that he had settled a lawsuit between him and his ex-fiance. That his ex-fiance had accused him of abuse, and he sued her for defamation, and they had settled. So, and his name is Brian Johnson. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was kind of shocked at how he looks. He doesn't look normal. He looks like a cyborg. And he says, yeah, that's how good heaven is. Lynn's client never wants to go there. And he's LDS well, he's former LDS. He doesn't believe any of it anymore. In fact, he's heavily anti-LDS now. He's so heavily anti-LDS that he never wants to go to the place that he was taught. He doesn't want to go to paradise. They call it paradise in LDS church. He doesn't believe in that paradise that they taught. He just put out a supplement for 400 people to extend life. Yep. Don't believe him, you guys. Don't believe him. I'm sorry. It's bullshit. I'm sorry to say it, but it's bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to say it. It really disheartens me, because when he was my client, what he was trying to do when he was my client was just invest in this stuff, not actually try to sell specific products and say, yep, Jody Hildebrandt was in the same mindset, which is why I keep saying there are still people out there that believe this and act on it. But anyway, back to Brian Johnson. When you talk about his he talks about his daily routine, it's inhuman. It's literally inhuman. What he eats, the hours he sleeps, he will only sleep alone. And I will say this, he's a very nice man. He's an incredibly nice man. There's nothing. Yeah. Such a sweet guy. Like, I have nothing but nice things to say to him, but I ache for him, because it's like he's trying. I don't understand why he's looking for this, like, immortality. You've watched a lot of him. He injected stem cells from his 18-year-old. Oh my God. You know what? I'll give you a sweet story, okay? So when he was my client, I set up a feature story for him in the Wall Street Journal, because he was announcing a fund. It was called the OS Fund, okay? And he was basically saying, I want to invest in the operating systems of life. It was a cool concept. So he was a venture fund, and he was putting $100 million into this fund called the OS Fund. So I got this feature story for him, and the Wall Street Journal wanted to, yeah, he does. He didn't look like that when I was working with him. I promise you. He looked so normal. So normal. He had just come here from He actually still lived in Utah when I met him. He was still in Utah when I met him. So, we set up a photo shoot because the Wall Street Journal needed a photo. So we set up a photo shoot at this, kind of cool restaurant in downtown San Francisco, where they had this cool seating, and we did a photo shoot. And I brought my son along, and my son was like 12 at the time. And we had lunch with Brian Johnson. And even at that time, Brian Johnson was being very healthy, and we had a very healthy lunch. We brought in salads, and as we were taking the photo shoot, my son wrote a thank you letter to Brian Johnson, like just a cute little thank you note on the hotel stationery in his cute little 12-year-old handwriting. Dear Brian Johnson, it was very nice to meet you. Thank you for lunch. Good luck with your fund. And later on, a few months later, Brian Johnson showed me that he saved the note from my son. It was so cute. So I think he's well-meaning, but all this like marketing of giving people hope for something that just seems impossible to me bothers me. It seems scammy to me. But they're calling him Benjamin Button. Jesus Christ. Well, I haven't interacted with him for a very long time, so I don't know, everything that I don't know his motivations. I just know that I don't know anything bad about. I don't know anything. I mean, male Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah. When I worked with him, his hair wasn't dark like that. So I think he dyes his hair. His hair wasn't that kind of weird color of like nutty brown. It was a natural, like dusty blonde color when I worked with him. And he is much more thin now. He wasn't I mean, he was just a normal build when I met him. But now it's like he's not relatable. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Not relatable. Not relatable. So anyway, that's my Brian Johnson story. It would be nice if he can succeed. I hope everybody succeeds at their dream as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. Succeed at your dreams. Just don't hurt anybody else. My God. All right, you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.